We start getting your first and last name?
Eddie Benoit, B-E-N-O-I-T.
Okay. And where and when were you born, sir?
I was born in Norwich, Connecticut on March the 4th, 1923,
And what branch of the service were you in?
in the Navy.
Navy. Okay. How old were you when you joined the service?
I just turned 18,
Just turned 18. What year was that?
1942.
Why did you decide to join the Navy?
Well, because I tried to follow in my dad's footsteps. He was in the First World War in the Navy. And I was always told that I'd like to have a dry bed. And so at least there was a, board ship. It wasn't like digging in the foxhole.
Yeah.
So that's why I chose the Navy.
What did you do in the Navy?
I was a signalman. I went to signal school and got assigned to first a destroyer for a shakedown cruise, but then transferred into the Amphibious Force, which was just starting at that time. Yes, they did. When I wanted to join them right after, I was only 17 after the war, in December the 7th in 41. And I remember I was at the movies at the day, and they cut into the movie and said that we'd just been attacked. And I went home and I wanted to go immediately. I was in the high school, of course, and I said, Dad, I want to join the Navy. Well, my dad was a captain in the State Guard that was mobilized immediately. And living in Norwich, Connecticut, which is outside of the submarine base of New London, he was mobilized immediately and sent down. So he asked me to stay at home for a while because I'd be the oldest son there to look after the rest of the family while he was called to active duty. So finally I convinced him, and I went back to school, but after my birthday, and I finally convinced him to sign and let me go into the Navy. But the one thing that he did tell me, he says, when you go in there, he says, you can ask for where the branch of service and property that you would like to be in, but they're going to assign you to where they feel you're the best. And he says, all I want you to do is accept what they want you to do and do your best at it. And that's exactly, I did not want to be a signalman. And I didn't want to be the vulnerable guy on top of the deck there with the signal flags. But it turned out that that's what I was chosen to do, and went to school for that. But till this day, I'm sort of proud. I was one of the youngest chiefs in the Navy. I made chief after 3.5 years in the Navy. And so I made my dad proud of me, and I fulfilled his wishes. So. Well, the Amphibious Force was created when when the war started, because they couldn't get in the islands where most of the Japanese had taken all the islands. There was no way of getting troops over on these islands. So the Amphibious Force was created to get landing vehicles that they could get on. So they started out with the small LCVPs, they call it. We only carried like, 15 or 20 people. Mm-hmm. And then this LCI, which stood for Landing Craft Infantry, large, we carried 165 fully equipped soldiers that we could drop off on the beach, in the invasion. But the problem was that there was never a flat bottom boat. We only drew like 5 foot of water in the bow and 7 feet in the stern. A flat boat to ship across the Pacific. Yeah. And we were only 160 feet long. So we were like corks out there in the water, and when the waves would get up to, 15 to 20 foot seas, we were just floating out there, going along and going with the waves more than anything else. You had to fight, to keep in. And so we were the first ones to go across the Pacific, and which turned out, and we were built very cheaply because they were expendable, figuring that, well, if we did our job and landed the troops, but our ship got pierced, 25 caliber bullets used to penetrate the side. But it turned out to be that they were such a good boat that they were, hundreds of them built then, and they were actually the Amphibious Force. We landed troops in every island, all the way up in the Iwo Jima in the Philippines, all with landing crafts.
What was the first big operation you guys were involved in?
Well, it was a series of invasions all through the New Guinea, all the way up the coast of New Guinea, and until we fortified that. And I recall when we landed in Lae, New Guinea, that the troops were all alerted that we're going ashore to look for the whereabouts of Amelia Earhart, because that was the last report that they had of her being at Lae. And from there we went across, and on Christmas morning of 1943, we landed the 1st Marine Division in New Britain Islands, and that secured that whole passage then. That opened up that we could go up the coast.
Oh, wow.
And I guess the next big invasion was in Hollandia, Dutch New Guinea. And that was prior to, that was the setting off place to go to the Philippines, where we left from there. Then we secured the shooting islands around us and took care of the passage in through there, made it sort of clear to go up the way then for the invasions of the Philippines then. Oh, in 1944, we were converted, the first ones. What was happening is there was a lull between the bombardment of the ships and the bombing, and there'd be this lull period in which the enemy had a chance to get out of their foxholes or fortifications, whatever they had to get on the shore, and then the troops would be hitting this fire, a lot of fire. So they decided to use rockets that could be fired in on the beach right ahead of the landing, so that would protect, in other words, it would protect the troops a lot more. So the only way they could get these rockets over there, of course, was to put them on the deck of a ship. So again, the LCIs were called into service, and they mounted us with racks, of which we fired 476 rockets in about 10 seconds. And each deck was elevated up on an angle. And when we got out to about 150 yards from the beach with a rangefinder, then we'd fire the rockets in and blast the whole beach. Each rocket was equivalent to a 3-inch shell as far as the impact it was. It did not penetrate deep, but it was more anti-personnel than it was anything else. I know it used to dock palm trees flying all over, floating in the ocean there, and picnic or whatever tables they had, encampments and everything else. You'd find that stuff floating all over. But, so we were the first ones to be converted into a rocket ship. So. And so they were taking us to make rocket boats out of them, because the new LCI came through with the round conning towers, and they had more firepower on them and everything else. So they figured, what the hell, we were expendable. Get rid of the troops and load the whole troop compartment with rockets. If you ever get hit once directly, you blow it up to nothing, because now you're vulnerable. You're going out there, and all you have on you was, we had a 140 millimeter on the bow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 28 millimeters, and that was all we had. In other words, you're vulnerable. I mean, if they start coming at you, you gotta shoot. That's all there is, because your rockets are all going, except you're loaded with them down the bottom, and where the troop compartments are. That was all loaded with rockets and floating dynamite then. 73 was the first ship that was converted into rockets, first LCI. They were trying it out there because they didn't know, what was going to happen. So they were the first one. Well, 11 invasions, yes, you do. Yeah. You get shot at. We were the only ships, as I said before, that we were landing on the beach. The Japanese had the opportunity to trench mortar us and hand grenades from the treetops where they used to strap themselves up in the top of the trees. And so we were the first ships of the Navy to ever be fired on with that type of weapons, you know. So, and we were strafed, and we're like anything else. You're on the beach, the planes are coming over, they're dropping bombs and strafing you. And so personally myself, I don't know if I hit anyone. I was shooting under a gun like everybody else. I know I was involved in one of the planes that I took down because I remember that when I first went aboard ship, I was assigned as a 20 millimeter gunner, and we did knock down a plane. But other than that, who knows what you're hitting, you know. Oh yes, the first invasion, I'll never forget it, of course, at that age. I was so scared that I had foul weather gear on, which is what your heavy jackets on then my life jacket on top of that, and shivering all the way, and the temperatures were in the 90, but just nerves, so scared. And the first, and then the second one wasn't as bad, didn't use the foul weather gear, and to get to the point that it's like a sport, I guess, after a while, because it's an awful thing to say, but your enemy was your enemy, and like it would be in a football team, and it was us or them. Mm-hmm. So consequently, you went in, then you united, you know, your crew all pulled as one, you all got to know each other well, and you relied on each other, and the invasions just seemed to be getting simpler all the time. Mm-hmm. Even though they weren't, but I mean, they seemed that way because you were accustomed to the firing and all of the strafing and whatever, you know. And you felt, I don't know, that we had very few casualties of our own the sailors. We had a lot of casualties of the Army as they were disembarking. They'd get strafed and machine gun, you know. But it seems as though you knew that you were going to win. Like, you know, it was just like a football game, you know. You were just pulling together, and it's scary, but it isn't, you know. After you sort of get the feeling that, well, that one wasn't meant for me, and then you go on to the next one, you know. Mm-hmm. But I was only one of the whole ship full of, you know, guys that officers that only had 90 days before the 90-day wonders they were called. And so we all gelled together. Finally, you gelled together as a team. And
yeah, I was on a bridge. That's why, you know, you get to see a lot when you're up there on the bridge, because you're right out in the open and looking, you're right next to the skipper. You know, that's your job, you know. When I was second class until when I was third class petty officer, up until I made second class, my battle station was one of the 20 millimeters, and we had another signalman. Then he got transferred, and you know what they were doing is, after a while, the Navy, when they were building these new ships, it's easy to get seamen that's going to wash the decks and everything, but all of those people, specialized people, like for instance Signalman, all your Morse code, all your code, and all that type of stuff is more important than just a guy sweeping the deck, a mop the deck or something. You know what I mean? Then I had a new kid from a guy by the name of Pasco from California that just come out of signal school, and he came aboard ship, and so then he was my what we call striker. He's striking for the position. So the skipper, whenever in battle stations or anything else, they always had your top men up there, because the messages are coming through, some of them fast by light, and then you're reading them all in Morse code, and then he acts as your recorder. Even you're just reading the thing as you're reading it, and he's writing down, and he had a lot of your code messages coming through, and then it could be a flash semaphore or whatever it is, you know. And then, you know, I'm watching for signals, any kind of signal that may come from the ship, maybe a quick change or something like that, and I have to get it. Maybe a quick semaphore gets up there, boom, boom, fast. We all got to read it, you know, fast. And no, that's my battle station. I'm up there, and I just duck down like everybody else does when the planes come flying over you. Your battle station is up there, and whatever the commands are given to you, most of the time you're taking commands, but you're telling the skipper if there's any changes or a signal flag goes up, boom, you have to hoist them right away. Signal flag, you tell them, Able Baker Charlie, and then he looks at his code book right there, and Able Baker Charlie, maybe a quick signal, make a 180-degree turn or whatever it's going to be, so that everybody gets it on at one time, And of course, I had up on the bridge up there, I had a Thompson submachine gun. You come in near the beach and everything else. Lots of times the bow of the ship on the beach and the coconut trees are hanging around almost, within 20 feet of you, 25 feet away from you. And the Japanese used to like to crawl up on those trees and get up there and all camouflaged. And then they wait till the troops started coming off. And then they stopped pegging hand grenades down at them, So our job was to wash those treetops or something like that. Not everybody, we weren't, my battle position was up there, that's it.
Well, the little stories, there's a lot of little stories we had. Like the stories where we had a friend, we had a monkey aboard ship, which was our biggest companion, but he was a little hellraiser. You never could trust what he was doing. You'd come by with your tray, and it was so warm below deck that we'd eat above. We had a table set on with a tarp over on the deck so that we could eat under the. And he'd lay on the top of that tarp, and as you're coming by, to scoop up a potato, which we very seldom got real potatoes, but he would get them. And there were a lot of things like that. Yeah. Between him and the cockatoo that we had, and he'd stick his hand in the cage and go to grab something, and the cockatoo would jump on him in the cage, and there'd be rattling coming down through the passageways. And, that was an amusement. That was the only thing we had for amusement.
Yeah.
But, it's, I don't know, the big Navy guys, what you call on the big battleships and everything else, had, all the facilities, laundries and everything else, where our clothes, we wash our clothes by soaping them down, tie them on a line, and with the bottom, let the wake of the ship rinse and do the washing, and then bring them in with salt water, stiff, put them on, and that was it. Yes, the invasion of Cape Gloucester, New Britain, with the 1st Marine Division on Christmas Day. I believe that's one of the reasons that I was pulled up. There was a message. We had to get a message to the ships, the other landing. We were in the first wave hitting the beach going in, and my ship was a flotilla commander, so group commander. So we always landed in the V formation. The first ship hits, the other two coming in on each side all the way down. And as we were coming in, we were off the beach a little bit. That the water was up to the waist, under the armpit of the Marines that we were landing. So my commander said, "Get a message. We got to get a message to the other ship to land west of us, right of us." And so I jumped up with the signal flags to do it. In the meantime, all this firing is going on, and they knocked down the port running light and cut the antenna down, our radio antenna, with the firing. And I'm up there, and I'll never forget this one officer grabbed me and yanked me down from there, and he says, "You damn fool," Well, because I was told to get the message back, and the quickest way to get the message back was signal, because every ship behind can read one signalman over there. So, that's I recall that. I didn't get hit or anything, but that's the one thing that I'll live with that and think about it. But every other instance, is, every invasion is different. Every invasion is different. You get up in the morning, you grab your car, and like it was mostly all like dawn or pre-dawn. And the scary part is you get real nervous as they start the bombing. And say you're going to have an invasion at, say, 6:05 or whatever it's going to be. Then it'll stop bombing, and you'll hear, all of a sudden you hear all the bombing going on, you see the big flashes going, and you're about 3 miles or 4 miles out at sea then, coming in, the invasion force coming in. And when the high altitude bombers, the B-29s and 27s, bombing up above. And then that is followed then by your naval bombardment. So that you're going, the amphibious group is getting, your battleships and cruisers are behind you, and you actually see the clusters, you hear them going through the air, the clusters of the big shells, and when they're going down to land on the beach. Well, you're still moving in slowly. Now, the lower altitude bombers will take over. After the bombardment starts from the Navy, the lower altitude bombers come in and they're trying to get pinpoint areas, certain areas. So then there was this lull. We were about a night, a couple miles out, and there was this lull for the troops to get ashore. So it used to be, right before they went to shore, your low altitude P-39s, P-40s, Bel Air Cobras would come in and they strafe. They're going along strafe and just firing along the beaches, getting ready ahead of the soldiers to hit. So then, but they eliminated that with the rockets, and they decided they needed something there to clear that whole beach area a lot. Mm-hmm. So it only penetrated in maybe 300 yards, 200 or 300 yards, but that's all they wanted, so that you could get the forces ashore. So that's why the rocket ships were developed. Because when they were on every invasion, what there is like there's a group of small LCVPs, which is landing vehicles, they call landing, they established the ship-to-shore communication real quick. They're the first real heroes. I mean, they hit the beach first, and then we're following right behind them. But then they set up the beach marks and so. And there was one other invasion in Finchhaven, New Guinea, which was all Australian operation. We had all Australian soldiers, and our first troop compartment was all Aboriginal natives, the Fuzzy Wuzzies, wow. And they were to be acting as guides for the troops, and they were trained, I guess, Australian trained and everything. But for some reason or other, we landed a pre-dawn invasion, and as we're coming in, we passed the Higgins boats that were high and dry on reef, and they hit the reefs. And what happened is they missed the whole beach. In some of these areas, the beach landing was probably only 300 yards wide, and then it was cliffs and stuff. But as far as the nice beach was, and they were all groves, all coconut groves. A lot of them were owned by Palmolive Pete for coconut oil and everything. And so what happened there is the Australian officer that was leading the thing, I guess, gave the wrong directions. And so we came in and we ran over the top. And some of the boats had the bottoms ripped out with the coral reefs. But when we landed, it was our ship landed right in front of a cliff. There was only a beach of probably, maybe 75 to 100 feet, that's all, before it went right up on the cliffside. And the Aborigines started climbing these, and they were being hit from there, and they were dropping down there like flies off of the, that was pretty scary there because everybody was screaming and hollering, and it was, we just missed the beach a little bit. You got the troops off there, but what had happened is the bombardment was at the beach area, and it moved all the enemy up into these hills, and there they are. We land right in front of them, right below them. Well, I had a lot of faith, and I figured if it was going to be, it was going to be, But after you've survived a couple of the invasions, I was in the 11 invasions all along the different coasts and all the way up, and after you survive a few, you feel like you're going to be safe all the way through. But at the same token, there isn't a day that goes by, and I don't care who it is, GI or Navy, and that can't say that they're not scared, because every invasion, you expected the worst. You always expect the worst, and you keep thinking, well, is it going maybe is today going to be my last? You don't know, So Yes, it's the truth. All the way through, you think that every day. I don't care what it is. And I'm very fortunate that I'm here today. That's all. No, I left before the war was over. They sent me home as supposedly combat fatigue, they call it. And I think it's a case of moderate psychoneurosis, and I don't know what it, but anyway, they sent me home with orders that I could not go back to sea for a year. In the meantime, then I was transferred to Newport, Rhode Island, where I became Chief Petty Officer and was in charge of the tower in the harbor that ship-to-shore communication. So the war ended while I was there. It was a sense of relief, but it was also like something was missing in your life. Because I think after 5 years, 5.5 years, it's I don't know how to say it, but it's a different feeling. You were glad it was over with, but it almost like you were losing the family, because all your friends, we still kept in touch with each other, and we still do today. But no, what's left? Only one other guy that's left that I communicate with, but. Well, the war ended. I went back home, went back to my old job, because you were guaranteed your work, of course. But then in the meantime, I was married, and so I went back to electrical apprenticeship, finished my electrical apprenticeship, and from then on moved on. Then. Yes, it was. Yeah, there's a period there that you're so regimented in the service, and there's the closeness. It's a different situation when you're, I believe everybody that's been in any kind of combat duty or anything will find that the people that you were associated with, you're so close in that short length of time, there's a bond that it's hard to break. And you rely on each other. You know that he's going to do his job, you're going to do yours, and when you come out, you sort of feel like alone. Even though you have a family and you go back to your type of work, but your type of work is not what you've been doing for the last 5 years, and there's a big change, and I can see why the boys coming home today are going through the same change. It takes a while to get readjusted again. Oh yes, I still do. We have an association that was formed after the war, and we have an annual reunion. And the only bad part about the whole thing is that the last reunion, the radio man, and I was a signalman aboard ship, and the radio man and myself, the only two communicators, were the only two from our own original plank, what we called plank sailors, that when they put the ship in commission, and so that we were the only two left now. So. Well, the younger generation, they're going through an altogether different type of war than what we had at that time. We knew what the enemy was, who the enemy was. And today, the younger guys, I feel bad for them because they don't know who their enemy is. And I think that, that they should in a way be proud of that they had the opportunity to be able to serve. We all did, and we thought that one war was going to be the end of it, and we felt pretty proud of that. But then there's been a couple since then, and they probably, every one of the veterans from there probably feel that they have done the end of it, and may go on for a while. So I hope and pray that just to do is you just put your trust in the Lord and go out and do your job as an American. That's all. Well, and other than the fact that I'm fortunate that I can be here today at 84 years old and talking about it yet, but I don't think there's I'm not a hero any more than anyone else. I just did my job like I was asked to do, and that's what the other guys are doing now. Sorrow. I feel bad about these young kids. My grandson just came back after his second tour of Iraq, and I was real happy that he was saved. And like I say, it's in the hands of the Lord. I don't care what it is. When your number is up, your number is up. And the kids that are doing it, it's pathetic. I think it's so senseless that we have to go out and kill each other in order to settle something. Yeah, I think it's very senseless. And if we do have wars, I think it's an ideal place to go to these islands where there's no one there except. We evacuated, actually invaded in one of the, before we did the invasion of Finch Haven and Alei rather, we actually moved some Aboriginal tribes. We went at night, 2 nights before the invasion, where they stuffed rags in our mufflers so we could come in silently with the ramps down, way down the coast. The word had gotten to them through their intelligence somehow, and we actually moved tribes, people, villages away before the invasion, before the bombardment. And it was funny to get up in the morning, early morning at dawn, and look out there, and there's a mother feeding little babies and a little pig suckling at the same time and everything else. And that was the only thing that they owned, that they took with them, possessions, but we moved them down the coast so they wouldn't be in the bombardment. But as far as the supreme sacrifice, those who do it, we owe an awful lot to them, because they're not here to get that respect anymore. But we certainly owe an awful lot to them. That every one of us that are alive in this country should be honored that we have kids that are willing to give up their lives like that too. And as I say, I was only one of thousands, and at that time that was the thing to do. We were attacked. I believe today it's a senseless war because. I have my own political views on it, but it's to me it's not a war to free our country or anything else, because I don't think we're ever going to stop terrorism. It's going to get worse in every country. It's not only in this country. But it's too bad that people have to go out there today, and especially at 18 years old, 19 years old, when your life is just starting, and just to get it. So why should I be preaching about this now? But that's the way it is. And I'm sure that you've talked to other veterans and everything else, and they probably feel the same way. It's something that I did at the time that I fulfilled was my duty to go into. I had all my sisters and my brothers at home, younger brothers and sisters, and you feel like you got to go out and protect them, and that was it. But the whole country was that way then. Today it's such a mismatch of people controversy as to what is right and what is wrong. But then at that time it was everybody. Mothers all went to work, and everybody, and rations, and it was an all-out effort. I hope I answered your questions. I don't know.
That and more. Great. Well, thank you so much.